I never imagined that a straightforward phone notification would completely ruin my life. Yet there it was, illuminating my husband Mark's screen as he took a shower. A preview of a message that made my stomach turn. I miss our conversations. Tomorrow lunch again. I'm Grace, and up until that point, I believed that being a stay-at-home mother to our 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was an entirely normal life. The kind of life when your biggest daily concern is preventing supper from burning while helping with homework, or cleaning paint stains off your child's beloved dress. I stood there in our bedroom, Mark's phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over the screen. The rational part of me said to put it down. The other part, the part that had noticed Mark working later and later, coming home with a distant look in his eyes, that part went out. "Mom, where are my purple socks?" Lily's voice carried up from downstairs, making me jump. "Check the laundry basket, sweetie." I called back, my voice surprisingly steady despite my trembling hands. The shower was still running. I had time. 3 swipes later, I was staring at weeks of messages between Mark and someone named Andrea from sales. They started innocently enough. Work discussions, meeting confirmations. But as I scrolled up, the tone shifted. Inside jokes, personal details, plans for private lunches. "I found them," Lily shouted triumphantly. The shower stopped. I quickly placed Mark's phone back, exactly where I'd found it, and busied myself with making the bed, my mind racing. The messages weren't explicitly romantic, but there was an intimacy there that made my chest ache. "Hey, have you seen my blue tie?" Mark emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, water droplets still clinging to his shoulders. He looked exactly the same as he had yesterday. But somehow everything was different. Was he choosing that shirt because Andrea liked it? Was he checking his phone so much because of her? "Daddy, can you drive me to school today?" Lily appeared in the doorway, purple socks proudly displayed, her backpack nearly as big as she was. "Not today, princess. I've got an early meeting." Mark barely looked up from his phone as he knotted a different tie around his neck. Lily's face fell, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about me anymore. Whatever was happening with Mark was affecting our daughter too. "I'll take you, baby," I said, reaching for her hand. "We can listen to your favorite songs on the way." As we headed downstairs, Mark called after us. "Don't forget I have that dinner thing tonight. Don't wait up." "Dinner thing?" I repeated under my breath, the words tasting bitter. How many of those dinner things had actually been lunches with Andrea? I helped Lily into her car seat, my mind already spinning with possibilities. I could confront Mark directly. I could try to catch them together. I could pretend I knew nothing and gather more evidence. But as I started the car and caught sight of my daughter's face in the rearview mirror, so innocent, so trusting, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever I decided to do next would change everything, and I needed to make sure those changes would be for the better, for both of us. The call from Lily's school came just as I was setting up my easel in the spare room. My daughter had pushed another kid during recess, completely out of character for my usually sweet little girl. As I drove to pick her up, my mind kept drifting to the half-finished canvas I'd left behind. Painting had become my escape lately, the only place where the mess in my head made sense. "She's normally such a good student," Miss Thompson said, while Lily sat slumped in a chair beside her desk. "But lately, she's been distracted, acting out." I knelt in front of Lily, noting the dark smudges under her eyes. "What happened, baby?" Tommy said I was lying. Lily's bottom lip trembled. "He said Daddy doesn't have special friends at work." The air left my lungs. I forced myself to keep my expression neutral, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. What made you tell Tommy about Daddy's friend? I heard you talking to Aunt Sarah on the phone. Lily picked at a loose thread on her skirt. You said Daddy has a special friend named Andrea. Miss Thompson shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I felt my cheeks burn, knowing this would be through the parent grapevine by dinner. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Coffee? You look like you could use a friend right now. 20 minutes later, we sat in her studio, surrounded by her vibrant abstract paintings. Sarah pushed a steaming mug into my hands. Spill. Lily's acting out at school because of Mark. Whatever it is with Andrea. I took a shaky sip. I should have been more careful talking about it. No, Mark should have been more careful sneaking around. Sarah grabbed one of her canvases, turning it to face me. Remember this one from your first art class? I smiled despite myself. Painting was terrible. Muddy colors and uncertain brush strokes. You were such a patient teacher, I said. And you were a natural once you stopped doubting yourself. She paused, studying me. The local gallery is accepting submissions for their summer showcase. You should enter. I nearly choked on my coffee. I haven't shown my work since before Lily was born. Exactly. Time to remind everyone, including Mark, that you're more than just someone's wife and mother. That evening, I was working on a new painting when Mark came home early. For once, he stopped in the doorway of my makeshift studio, frowning at the drop cloths and art supplies. What's all this? His tone was light, but I caught the tension in his jaw. Just getting back into painting. I kept working, adding touches of deep blue to the canvas. The school called today. Lily got in trouble. What? Why didn't you tell me immediately? He pulled out his phone, probably checking for missed messages. You were in meetings. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. With Andrea, I assume. The silence that followed was deafening. When I finally looked up, Mark's face had gone carefully blank. We need to focus on Lily right now. This hobby can wait. It's not a hobby. I set down my brush. Lily's acting out because she knows something's wrong at home. She can feel it. Nothing's wrong except you turning our spare room into an art gallery instead of dealing with our daughter. He turned to leave, then paused. Clean this up before someone tracks paint through the house. After he left, I stared at my painting. A stormy seascape with a single lighthouse standing defiant against the waves. Sarah was right. It was time to stop hiding my light. I pulled out my phone and photographed my 3 best pieces. The gallery submission deadline was tomorrow. My hands shook as I filled out the online form, but I didn't hesitate when I reached the artist statement section. Art is truth, I wrote, and sometimes the truth needs to be seen to be believed. I hit submit before I could change my mind. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing. I was done being invisible. The gallery's acceptance email arrived the same morning I found the receipt Mark had forgotten to clear from his browser history. Rookie mistake. 2 nights at the Mountain View Hotel charged to our joint account. The dates matched his business conference from last month. I was still staring at the screen when Mark stumbled into the kitchen, looking hungover despite claiming he'd worked late. Coffee ready? I said, keeping my voice steady. Interesting place. The Mountain View? I added. Their website shows beautiful conference rooms. He froze halfway to the coffee maker. What? I particularly like their couples spa packages, though I guess those are part of the standard business accommodation. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Mark's face cycled through surprise, anger, and finally settled on something like resignation. "Grace, it's not," he started, but my phone buzzed. The gallery wanted to meet today to discuss my submission. I stood up, cutting him off. "I have an appointment. Lily's lunch is packed. Don't forget she has dance class after school." "Where are you going?" His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "Since when do you have appointments?" "Since I decided to stop pretending everything's fine." I grabbed my car keys. "Maybe you should try it sometime." The gallery was smaller than I'd imagined, but warm and inviting. Sarah met me outside, practically bouncing with excitement. They never request meetings for first-time submissions, she whispered as we walked in. "This is huge." The gallery director, an elegant woman in her 50s, introduced herself as Evelyn Holloway. My stomach dropped. Richard Holloway's wife, Mark's boss's wife. "Your work is remarkable," Evelyn said, leading us to a quiet corner. "Particularly storms and secrets. The emotion in those brush strokes, it's raw, personal." I thought of the stormy seascape I'd painted after discovering Mark's texts. Art helps me process things. Indeed. She studied me carefully. "My husband mentions your name occasionally, through Mark, of course." The air felt suddenly thick. Did she know about Andrea? "About the hotel? I'd like to feature your pieces in our upcoming showcase," Evelyn continued. "All three of them. They tell a powerful story of transformation and resilience." My phone buzzed again. Mark calling. I declined it. "Thank you," I managed. "That means more than you know." Leaving the gallery, Sarah grabbed my arm. "Grace, this is amazing. But are you okay? You look pale." "Mark's been staying at hotels with her." The words tumbled out. "I found the receipts this morning." "That son of a—" Sarah's phone chimed. She checked it, and her expression changed. "Oh God." She turned her screen toward me. It was a Facebook post from Andrea. A selfie with Mark at lunch, his arm around her shoulders. The caption read, "Finally ready to stop hiding. Life's too short for secrets." My hands started shaking. "When was this posted?" 10 minutes ago, Sarah said. "I called Mark's voicemail and texted Lily. Dance class, don't forget." His response came instantly. "Already picked her up. We need to talk. Come home." The house was quiet when I arrived. Lily's dance bag sat unopened by the door. "She's at my mother's," Mark said from the living room. He looked terrible, tie loose, hair messy. I thought we needed privacy for this conversation. "Privacy?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "Like the privacy of the Mountain View Hotel. I was going to tell you." He ran his hands through his hair. "After the promotion came through, once things were settled." "Settled?" My voice rose. "Our daughter is acting out at school. I found hotel receipts for your affair, and your girlfriend just announced it on Facebook." "What exactly is settled?" "Andrea wasn't supposed to—" He stopped, realizing his mistake too late. "At least say her name with your whole chest, Mark." I headed for the stairs. "I'm getting Lily's overnight bag." "Grace, wait." His voice cracked. "I'm scared." "Okay. Everything's falling apart at work. Richard's been watching me like a hawk, and you're suddenly having secret meetings." "They're not secret. I'm just finally doing something for myself." I turned back to him. "And unlike you, I'm not hiding it in hotel rooms." I left him standing there, my heart pounding but my mind surprisingly clear. In my studio, my paintings waited. Witnesses to everything I couldn't say out loud. Soon, thanks to Evelyn, the whole town would see them too, including Andrea. The morning of my first gallery meeting with Evelyn, I found divorce papers on Mark's desk, not signed, just printed and waiting. A loaded gun left casually in plain sight. My hands didn't shake as I photographed them with my phone. That surprised me. "Mrs. Holloway is ready for you," the gallery assistant said, leading me past walls of artwork to Evelyn's office. Through the window, I spotted Mark crossing the street toward the building. My stomach lurched. "Grace, perfect timing." Evelyn's smile faltered as she noticed my expression. "Is everything all right?" "Mark's heading this way." I moved away from the window. "He doesn't know I'm here." Understanding flickered across Evelyn's face. She pressed a button on her desk phone. "Claire, when Mr. Callahan arrives, please tell him I'm in meetings all afternoon." The door opened before Claire could respond. Mark stood there, looking expensive in his tailored suit, Andrea hovering behind him like a shadow. "Richard said I'd find you here," he said to Evelyn, then turned to me. "Though he didn't mention you be meeting with my wife, ex-wife, soon enough," Andrea muttered just loud enough to hear. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Evelyn stood, her presence suddenly commanding. "Mark, I'm discussing a significant commission with Grace, unless you're here to discuss art." "Commission?" Mark's laugh was harsh. "Grace doesn't do commission. She paints in our spare room to keep busy." Actually, Evelyn moved to a covered canvas in the corner. She does extraordinary work. This piece particularly moved our selection committee. She unveiled my painting, the stormy seascape with the lighthouse. But now, seeing it under professional lighting, I noticed details I hadn't consciously included. The lighthouse bore a subtle resemblance to me, standing alone against waves that looked suspiciously like grasping hands. Andrea stepped closer, her confidence wavering. "That's intense." "It's truth on canvas," Evelyn said simply. "The gallery is prepared to offer." "No," Mark's voice cracked like a whip. "Grace needs to focus on our family right now, on Lily." "Interesting timing," I said, finding my voice. "Considering the divorce papers are on your desk this morning." Her head snapped toward Mark. Apparently, he hadn't shared that detail with her. "You went through my desk." His face flushed. "You left them out, like you left your hotel receipts in the browser history. Like Andrea left that Facebook post up for 3 hours before deleting it." I turned to Evelyn. "I accept the commission. All terms." "Grace?" Mark started, but his phone buzzed. The color drained from his face as he read the message. "Problem?" Andrea asked, touching his arm. "Richard wants to see me now." He looked up, real fear in his eyes for the first time. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Mark. I just stopped hiding." I gathered my purse, suddenly exhausted. Like Andrea said, life's too short for secrets. Evelyn walked me out, leaving Mark and Andrea in her office. Through the glass, I saw them arguing in harsh whispers. "Richard doesn't tolerate scandal," Evelyn said quietly, "especially not from employees gunning for partnership." I never meant to cause trouble with Mark's job. "No," Evelyn said, "but your art told the truth he was trying to hide." She handed me a business card. "My personal number. Call anytime." "And Grace," she paused. "The commission isn't just about the art. It's about supporting artists who dare to stand in their truth." At home, I found Lily in my studio, adding careful brushstrokes to her own small canvas. She painted 3 figures, one tall, one medium, one small, standing under a rainbow. "Is that us?" I asked, sitting beside her. "It was," she said, dabbing more blue paint onto her brush. "Now I'm making the tall ones smaller, like when caterpillars get small in their cocoon before becoming butterflies." I stared at her painting, seeing the wisdom in her 6-year-old metaphor. Sometimes things had to break down completely before they could transform into something new. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard Holloway. "My office. 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. Bring your portfolio." I looked at Lally's painting again, at the shrinking figure under the rainbow, and felt something like hope unfold its wings in my chest. Richard Holloway's office felt like a courtroom, all dark wood and judgment. My portfolio sat unopened on his desk while he studied me with the same intensity I'd seen in Evelyn's gallery. "Your husband's been up for partnership for 3 years," he said finally. "Did you know that?" I shook my head, remembering all the late nights Mark had claimed were for partnership track. "He's talented, but lately—" Richard tapped my portfolio. "Well, let's just say talent isn't everything." Opening it, he revealed my stormy seascape. "Unlike this. This is both talent and truth." "I'm not here to discuss Mark," I said, but Richard held up his hand. "Andrea's resignation letter arrived this morning. Apparently, she's taking a position at our competitor." He leaned back. "The same competitor Mark's been sharing confidential information with." My breath caught. "What?" Those hotel meetings weren't just personal, Mrs. Callahan. They were professional betrayals. Before I could process this, his office door burst open. Mark stood there, face twisted with rage. "You had no right." "I had every right," Richard replied calmly. "Just as the board has every right to review your correspondence with Bradford and Associates." "Mark," Andrea appeared behind him, eyes red. "You said we'd start fresh. There together." Pieces clicked into place. Mark hadn't just been planning to leave me. He'd been planning to take our biggest client with him. "You're both free to leave," Richard said. "Security will escort you out." I watched them go, feeling strangely hollow. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Check your email now." The local arts magazine had featured my upcoming gallery show. The preview included photos of my work, including one I hadn't submitted, an intimate family portrait I'd painted years ago, showing Mark, Lily, and me in happier times. The caption read, "Rising artist Grace Callahan explores themes of betrayal and redemption." That photo wasn't supposed to be included, Evelyn said from the doorway. She'd appeared so quietly, I hadn't heard her come in. "Andrea leaked it to the press, along with some creative interpretations of your work's meaning." My phone exploded with notifications. The story was spreading, with Andrea's spin turning my art into a public accusation. Comments flooded in, strangers dissecting my marriage like entertainment. "I never wanted this," I whispered. "No one ever does," Richard said, "but sometimes exposure is the best disinfectant." Back home, I found the house empty except for a note from my mother-in-law. "Took Lily for ice cream. She's asking questions about the magazine article." In my studio, I stared at my latest unfinished painting, a woman emerging from shadows into light. But now it felt tainted, twisted by public scrutiny into something vengeful rather than transformative. The front door slammed. Mark's footsteps on the stairs. Then his figure in my doorway. "Happy now?" His voice was raw. "You've destroyed everything I built." "You destroyed it," I said, not turning around. "I just painted the truth." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "The truth is I was suffocating here, watching you play at being an artist while I carried everything on my shoulders." Play at being. I spun to face him. I supported your career for years, Mark. I raised our daughter. I buried my dreams so you could chase yours. And now, he gestured at my paintings. Now you're what? Some brave whistleblower? The wronged woman getting her revenge through art? No. I picked up my brush, turning back to my canvas. I'm just finally painting my own story instead of living in yours. He was quiet for a long moment. Andrea is leaving for Bradford and Associates tonight. She wants me to go with her. I added a streak of gold to the emerging woman's hair, Lily's color. Then go, Grace. His voice cracked. What are you going to tell Lily? I thought of her painting, the shrinking figure under the rainbow, the truth that sometimes people need to leave to figure out who they really are. After he left, I stayed in my studio painting until the light faded. My phone kept buzzing with messages and comments, but I ignored them all. Let them talk. Let them judge. The real story was emerging on my canvas, stroke by stroke, truth by truth. And this time, I was holding the brush. The gallery opening should have been my triumph. Instead, I stood in the corner, watching my life unravel on social media. Andrea had gone viral with her expose about my art being a calculated revenge campaign, and now reporters lurked outside, hoping to catch the drama they'd been promised. You don't have to do this tonight, Sarah whispered, squeezing my arm. We can postpone. I watched Evelyn greeting guests, steering conversations away from scandal toward artistic merit. If I don't do it now, I'll always be the woman who painted her revenge instead of her truth. The crowd parted, and there was Mark with Lily. My heart stopped. She wasn't supposed to be here. Mommy, she ran to me, wearing the dress she picked for her school art show. Daddy said I could come see your paintings. Mark's smile was razor sharp. She should see what her mother's been working on, don't you think? Before I could respond, a reporter shouldered past security. Mr. Callahan, how does it feel seeing your private life exposed through your wife's art? Lily's grip on my hand tightened. Why are they talking about our private life? That's enough. Richard appeared, signaling security. But Mark was already moving toward my centerpiece, the lighthouse painting. You want to know how it feels. His voice carried across the gallery. It feels like watching someone rewrite history. These paintings, he gestured around. They're lies. Beautiful lies. Mark, please. I tried to pull Lily away, but she resisted. The real story, he continued, is about a woman so desperate for attention she'd destroy her family for it. The reporter's camera flashed. Lily started crying. That's not true. I shouldn't have shouted, but the words burst out. The real story is about a man who betrayed everything. His wife, his company, his daughter, for his own selfish. Stop it. Lily wrenched free, running toward the exit. She collided with a waiter, sending glasses crashing. In the chaos that followed, I found her huddled in the gallery's back office, hands over her ears. I hate the paintings, she sobbed. I hate them. My chest felt like it was caving in. Baby, I'm so sorry. I never meant you made Daddy look like the bad monster in my nightmares. She pointed at a sketch visible through the office window, one I'd done of Mark in darker moments. But he's not a monster, she said, her voice breaking. He's just sad. Like you're sad. Like I'm sad. The truth in her words hit harder than any viral story or public humiliation. I told myself I was painting truth, but I'd been painting pain and making my daughter carry it. Grace, Evelyn stood in the doorway. The buyers are waiting. We need to cancel it. I stood up, my decision crystallizing. Cancel the whole show. You can't. Mark appeared behind her. Isn't this what you wanted? Everyone seeing your truth. No. I looked at Lily, then at the paintings that had become weapons instead of windows. I wanted to be seen. But not like this. Not at her expense. Then what was it all for? The question came from Andrea, who'd somehow slipped in during the commotion. I thought of my latest painting, the woman emerging from shadows. I'd been so focused on the emergence, I'd forgotten about the shadows I was casting. It was supposed to be about healing. I said quietly, I forgot that healing doesn't happen in public. Taking Lily's hand, I walked past them all, past the whispers and cameras, straight to my centerpiece, the lighthouse. It still stood proud against the storm, but now I saw what Lily saw, not strength and solitude, but the cost of standing alone. Take me home, Mommy, Lily whispered. Home, not battlefield, I said, my heart heavy. Our house had become a battlefield, but somewhere new, somewhere we could all heal separately, quietly, away from the storm of public judgment. Okay, baby. I kissed her head, feeling the fight drain out of me. Let's go home. Behind us, the gallery erupted in fresh chaos as Mark faced the press alone. But for the first time in months, I didn't look back. Some battles aren't worth winning if the price is your soul. 3 days after the G disaster, I found Mark sitting in my darkened studio, staring at my unfinished paintings. The divorce papers lay signed on my workbench. Bradford and Associates rescinded their offer, he said, without looking up. Apparently dating the competition's newest executive while leaking company secrets isn't great for job prospects. I switched on the lights, an empty whiskey glass by his feet, another in his hand. Where's Andrea? Gone, he laughed hollowly. Turns out she was recording our conversations, building her case for promotion. While he gestured vaguely at the chaos around us. Why are you here? Mark. Richard offered me a chance to stay. His voice cracked, demoted, but employed. If I agree to counseling and sign a new non-compete agreement. That's good, right? He stood suddenly, swaying slightly. Good. I lost everything because you had to prove something with your art. Because you couldn't just be happy with what we had. Happy. The word tasted bitter, like you were happy sneaking around with Andrea. Happy watching me shrink myself to fit your idea of a proper wife. I never asked you to shrink yourself. You never had to. I grabbed the nearest canvas, the woman emerging from shadows. You just dismissed everything that made me, until I started believing I was nothing but your wife, Lily's mother. And now, he gestured at the paintings. Now, you're some brave truth-teller, the wronged woman getting her revenge through art. This isn't about revenge anymore. I turned the canvas toward him. Look closer. He squinted at the painting, really seeing it for the first time. The woman wasn't just emerging from shadows. She was reaching back into them, trying to pull something else into the light. His voice faltered. It's us. All of us. I started it the night Lily cried about your special friend. I realized we were all trapped in darkness. You and your lies. Me and my anger, Lily, and our mess. The fight seemed to drain from him. He sank back onto the stool. I was suffocating, he whispered. The pressure at work, at home. I couldn't be what everyone needed. Neither could I said. I set the canvas down gently, but I found my way out through art. What's yours, Mark? He pulled something from his pocket, a worn guitar pick. Remember when we first met at that open mic night? I nodded. He'd played original songs back then, before corporate life consumed him. Richard said something interesting. Sometimes we have to lose everything to remember who we really are. He turned the pick over in his hands. I haven't written a song in 7 years. A small sound made us both turn. Lily stood in the doorway, clutching her own painting, the one with the shrieking figure under the rainbow. Is Daddy leaving again? She asked. Mark moved toward her, but I got there first, kneeling down. No, baby. Daddy's finding himself. Just like Mommy did, I added softly. Through painting. Through music, Mark said, his voice gentle, if that's okay. Lily studied her painting, then held it out to him. The small person isn't scared anymore, just changing. Mark took the painting with trembling hands. Something shifted in his face, like clouds breaking after a storm. The papers are signed, I said, but maybe this doesn't have to be an ending, just a different kind of truth. He finished the thought. Maybe. Later, after Mark left for a hotel, I found a new text from Evelyn. Private showing next month. Just your new work. The real story, not the scandal. I looked at my unfinished painting, the woman reaching back into shadows. It needed something else now. Not just emergence, but evolution. Not just one figure finding the light, but all of us transforming in our own ways. I picked up my brush. This time, I knew exactly what truth looked like. 6 months later, I stood in a different gallery, surrounded by new paintings. No reporters this time, no scandal, just art lovers studying my latest collection, Metamorphosis. The anonymous buyer is here, Evelyn whispered, appearing at my elbow, the one who purchased your entire first collection. I followed her gaze to a familiar figure, studying my centerpiece, the completed woman emerging from shadows. Only now, she wasn't alone. Other figures emerged with her, each holding their own light. Hello, Grace. Mark looked different, lighter somehow. Corporate suits replaced by casual clothes, a guitar case slung over his shoulder. These are incredible. You're the anonymous buyer? He nodded, seemed right somehow, keeping the original story private, where it belonged. Before I could respond, Lily burst in from the children's art room next door, her hands covered in paint. Daddy, come see my butterfly painting. Mom taught me about metamorphosis, she said, tripping over the word. We said it together. I watched them head to the children's gallery, where Lily's art hung alongside other young artists. Her recent painting showed 3 separate butterflies, each emerging from its own cocoon, yet flying in formation. She's healing, Sarah said, joining me. You all are. I gestured to my new works. That's what this collection is about. Paintings telling stories of transformation, not just escape from darkness, but the courage to bring light back to others still trapped there. Canvas showed figures helping others emerge, sharing their brightness. Grace, Richard Holloway, approached with a younger man. This is Jason from the Children's Hospital Foundation. He's interested in commissioning a series for their new wing, Art Therapy for the Families. Jason explained, your work speaks to people going through difficult transformations, helps them feel less alone. As we discussed the project, I caught glimpses of Mark through the gallery. He was different with Lily now, more present, more genuine. The weekly therapy sessions were helping, and his new job teaching music gave him the creative outlet he denied himself for so long. Later, As the crowd thinned, I found him studying my final piece, a triptych showing 3 stages of metamorphosis. The first panel showed figures in darkness, the second in transformation, and the third, dancing. "They're dancing," he said quietly, "in their own lights, but together. It's not about forgiveness," I said, "or forgetting." "I know," he touched the frame gently. "It's about becoming who we really are, even if that means becoming something different than before." Lily appeared between us, taking both our hands. "Can we get ice cream? All of us?" I met Mark's eyes over her head. We weren't those people in the first panel anymore, lost in darkness, hurting each other. We weren't even the ones in the second panel, struggling through painful transformation. We were something new. Not together, but not entirely apart. "Ice cream sounds perfect," I said, as we walked out. Evelyn stopped me. "The hospital commission isn't the only offer. There's serious interest from several collectors. I'll look at the proposals tomorrow." I watched Lily skipping ahead, Mark following with his guitar case. "Tonight's about something else." Evelyn smiled knowingly. "Art isn't just about capturing pain, is it? It's about transforming it." In the warm evening light, we walked to the ice cream shop, not as a reunited family, but as 3 people who had found their own ways of shining. Lily chattered about her butterfly paintings. Mark hummed a new song he was writing. And I thought about the hospital commission, about using art to help others find their light. Sometimes the best kind of retaliation isn't fighting back, but rather overcoming the darkness that attempted to hold you back. Additionally, healing can occasionally entail discovering how to celebrate the light in others while dancing in your own. Even the people who used to cast the shadows had to leave. That's the reality. I finally mastered painting.